Hey, welcome back. Today, on Talking Tuesday, we're going to talk some more about clubs. Part 2. I am not social enough to join a biker gang. You know, the last discussion we had on clubs did really well, and a lot of you seem to really enjoy it, so we're going to continue with part 2. And just a disclaimer again, to make sure that we have all the bases covered, I'm not anti-club at all. I actually have quite the appreciation for them. I got a really good response from the last Talking Tuesday we did, talking about clubs, and really the difference between riding clubs, motorcycle clubs, and independents or independent. So didn't need to go into a whole lot of explanation there. So we're going to talk a little bit further about it today. And in case this is the first one you've watched and you didn't see the last one, let me just lay out this disclaimer again. I'm not, nor have I ever been, a member of a motorcycle club. The only riding club I've been a member of is HOG, or Harley Owners Group, and it's a brand-sponsored riding group, not to be confused with a motorcycle club. So anything I say about clubs, I've either learned from just being around, or from reading, or things I've heard along the way. I'm not giving out any secret sauce. I'm not trashing on anybody. Really can't talk about club business because I don't know any. And ironically, if I was in a club, I'm pretty sure I couldn't talk about it. I mean, it seems like a lot of times you can get permission and that kind of thing, but it looks pretty complicated. So this is merely my opinion, and I'm not really out to trash on anybody. I'm just talking about my experience, or lack thereof, and my thoughts on the matter. So don't bother attacking me in the comments, because I'll tell you straight up, I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have any insider information, and I don't have any hostilities. Well, maybe a few, but that's a different topic. Regardless of what we see in the media, which seems to generally emphasize our worst fantasies about being in a motorcycle club, the worst possible persona, a lot of us just can't help but look at clubs and think, that's cool. And it's for various reasons. I think for the most part, we're not isolated people. And that varies in degrees because people vary in degree. But I think for the most part, we desire a community of some sort. You know, we all have the same basic needs. We want to be safe and accepted and cared about and, etc. And we find that in different places. Some of us find it at work. Many of us find it in our families. Many of us find it in friends. And some people find it in motorcycle clubs. We talked a little bit last week about how there are a lot of veterans that come out of the service, especially wartime veterans, that gravitate to motorcycle clubs because of that unity that they had with the people in their group. And outside of getting married, and it's really not the same thing, it's really hard to find that kind of closeness in civilian life. So motorcycle clubs give people what they need. Again, as I said last week, there's a lot of rules and politics. It's probably fairer to call them protocols. Things that you're supposed to do, rules that you're supposed to follow. And they're really meant to keep the club as a cohesive, tight unit, to make it look spit and polish. Just spit and polish. I understand the protocols. I understand why. I'm not saying I agree with them all, but I don't have to because I'm not in a club. And that may be a really good reason for me never to be in a club. A motorcycle club. As I said, riding clubs don't have the same kind of rigidity and protocols to follow. You'll find a lot of riding clubs that follow a lot of those same types of protocols because they run into the motorcycle clubs a lot. They interface with them. The fascination of clubs, be it riding clubs or motorcycle clubs, to me, isn't the patch that you wear. Obviously, the patch is a symbol of the club that you're in, but that's not the draw to me. The draw to me is the relationship. And I think that any club, to be really strong, is based on relationship. If you've got somebody that you care about, you'll put your head on the chopping block for them. If you've got somebody that you own the same car as, or wear the same clothes as, you're not as apt to go that extra distance. It's about the relationship. Now, riding clubs, yeah, it's hit or miss. As I said, a lot of the riding clubs are brand-sponsored clubs. A lot of the clubs are based around something else other than motorcycles or this family. So that kind of dedication and unity is not quite the same. I actually know people who paid their $20 to be in a club and never showed up the whole time. I'm pretty sure you won't find that in most of the motorcycle clubs. If you put that kind of work to be in it, you show up. Not to mention that there are mandatory things that you have to show up for, so it's really a different thing. But we look at these motorcycle clubs and we think, They're cool. If I could do that, I'd be cool. I could be cool. I could fit in. I could be part of the group. Not everybody thinks that way. There are people who are very happy just being independents and out on their own. They don't even necessarily like to ride with other people. I actually like a mix. I like riding with other people because I like sharing those experiences and going on those rides, going to those places, and being able to remind each other of the stories. I love the stories. At the same time, I really like the flexibility of riding alone when I can change my plans at the drop of a hat. I can decide to go down a road without asking anybody, or I can stop and pull over to the side of the road and take photos without inconveniencing everybody. So there's some freedom to being on your own. There's also some setbacks. You know, if you're sitting all by yourself in a room and you start in with, hey, remember that time we were at that thing? That was a riot. You know, if it was just you, you might want to seek help. You know, that kind of stuff doesn't work alone. Some of my fondest memories of being on rides are with the people that I was on the ride with. You know, I start talking about stuff like, hey, remember when we went to the Tail of the Dragon and stayed at the hotel there? And it was kind of like a prison with just a little bit of furniture. It's just white cinder block walls. It's not bad. It's functional. Hey, remember that time you were on the phone and you kept dropping the phone because you were passing out? And oh yeah, I'm gonna go there. Hey, remember that time you put the Loctite on your exhaust bolts and they weren't actually on the engine? Ooh, fun times. You know, I mean, to be honest, I love those stories. I enjoy those and those make me really happy. Hey, remember that time we went to Barber Motorsports Museum and then the Space Center and up in Nashville, and we hung out in Nashville, and remember that when we were walking down the street. And these are the stories that I love getting when you go riding someplace with people, and they're just a blast. And they're not always embarrassing. Sometimes they're just a good time, and it's nice to reminisce with somebody else over those. You can't do that when you're alone, unless you're really schizophrenic. There's an advantage to riding with people and riding alone, just like there are advantages to being in a club and not being in a club. When I had my Yamaha before I got my Harley, there were a lot of things that I did to it that I regretted later. And if I had talked to somebody ahead of time, I probably would have avoided those mistakes. So when I got my Harley, I thought, I need to get in with people who have experience with this bike, because if I want to do modifications or something like that, or I want to be up on all the cool hip things, somebody else may have experience with that. And they may be able to tell me, no, you don't want to do that. Or you know, the best way to do that is because they've been down that road. So that's really how I ended up joining the Harley Owners Group and HOG. And while I can go out and ride on my own anytime, and usually do, sometimes they come up with rides that I think, I didn't think of that. That sounds like fun. And I'll go ride with them. Or I've been riding solo for quite some time and I'll just want to go ride with some people. I'll go ride with them. So there are advantages and disadvantages to anything. Unfortunately, we look at clubs, and especially, I don't know if it's true of anybody else, but it seems that Harley riders especially buy their first Harley and think, I got to join a club, a biker club. And if they're just new onto the scene and don't really know anything, a lot of times they'll just call it a biker gang. Now, side story for you, and don't get offended. I was young and didn't know anything. So I'm riding home on my bike and I'm thinking, clubs. Well, you know, I think it's important to bring something to a club as much as they bring to you. So what can I bring to a club? Well, I have a job and I can't really afford to get involved in a bunch of illegal stuff. So if I run across a club like the media makes them out to be, or the police, can't get involved in that. I don't really care what people do in their own time, but I don't need to be a drug mule or anything like that. So that rules out any club. Now this is before I met anybody. So that rules out any club that I may run across that is into that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, you know, I can't spend all my time out drinking at the bar. I got a family and I'd like to keep them. And I'm not that much of a drinker. And what happens if you get in a fight? Now I know that you cover your club brothers, whether they're right or wrong, you stand behind them. That's just the way it is. And I thought, well, is that what I want to do? I mean, I'm not afraid to get in a fight, but I don't want to be getting in a fight at the drop of a hat. I'm not a brawler by nature. So no, that's not really me either. And I'm going down this list in my head of all these things that fall into the biker image and thinking, no, I don't really want it. You know, no, that's not me. No, I can't really do that. No, that's not what I want. You know, and it dawned on me and I laughed out loud. I am not social enough to join a biker gang. I just thought that was funny. In some ways, I really am kind of antisocial. Don't get all twisted up. I never refer to them as gangs now. They're clubs. I mean, I can't judge a group by what I think they might be doing based on what the news is telling me. That's crazy. We would be a loose association of people who share a common interest. But I know there's stuff I don't want to be involved in. Now, don't get me wrong. That's saying it from the outside. If I was in a club and I had to defend the guys in my club, would I do it? Yeah, because then it's based on relationship. That's different. That's different than being on the outside and thinking, what if? If you're actually in it, you start supporting people in your organization. Now, there is one club that I've run across that I would be very tempted to get into for the patch, just because they're an old legacy club. Now, I've met some of the guys, really tried to extend myself to get some sort of rapport, some sort of connection, and it just hasn't happened. And at some point, I'm not going to beg. That's just crazy. It's crazy, sad, and desperate. I'm not going to do it. I mean, if I have to work that hard to make a connection, there's not much of a connection anyways. So I've kind of put that by the wind. And being such a social person, I've ended up in places with a bunch of bikers, just a bunch of bikers in different clubs and, independents, and just a bunch of bikers, and just really felt isolated. And I've hung out for a little bit and then got on my bike and ridden off and thought, I'm just going to be a lone biker. And there's a certain romanticism in that as well. But even being an introvert and antisocial, being alone gets old for me every now and then. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing I'd want to look for in a motorcycle club or a rider, any kind of club. And obviously you can't really get that as an independent. Now, as an independent, you can ask people if they want to go on rides and hang out. And really, I think that's where any club should start, is in that common dynamic of that group. Most independents will ride with you for a little while and then fall off and go find something else to do. And I mean, that's fair enough. They're free to live their lives. But being in a club of varying degrees adds a varying degree of resilience to that relationship as well. So at this point, I'm not a member of any clubs. There's a couple I could buy my way into, but I'm just not interested in doing that. There's one or two I could probably join, but it's not really my thing. And like I said, I'm not really big on the protocols. I have no problem treating somebody with the most respect I can give them. And that's whether they're in or out of a club. I don't care. I will treat them like people. I'll treat them like I want to be treated, and hopefully better. But I don't feel the need to go shake somebody's hand just because I'm expected to go shake their hand. And I understand that's a big deal. And I would never slight anybody for choosing that. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's up to you. I don't care. I don't hold it against people who have chosen the club life, whether it's riding clubs or motorcycle, any club life. Just like I don't hold it against people who are independents and want to stay that way. You can do what you want. And this is America, unless you're watching from overseas. Then this is America, that's somewhere else. But you can still do what you want. I find most of the time that if somebody has to go do something because it's a protocol, it's not really respect, it's fear. Most of the time, not all the time, most of the time. And I've said this a number of times on the site, fear and respect are often confused. But the basic difference is this. If I respect somebody, I'll put my head on the chopping block for them. I'll go out of my way to do what I can for them, of my own free will. If I fear somebody, I'll do what I have to do until I can get out from under it. So respect, fear, two different things. Now that's not to say that if I come off as a tool, that they're not going to snap on me. I'm a little afraid of that. And if I meet you, you have my respect until you go out of your way to lose it. But see, that's the kind of thing that means that I probably will never be in a motorcycle club. That's just not where I want to be. That's just not what I want to do. And as nice as it would be, for me, it's not worth the payoff. And I found there are a lot of independents out there who would never even consider joining a club of any sort. Some of them won't join anything because they really just want to get on their bike and ride. And I can absolutely respect that as well. And for a lot of us, riding our motorcycle is really what it's all about. And if I can find a couple of people that ride with me and we go share those experiences, we don't need to call ourselves anything for that to work. We don't need to call ourselves a club. We don't have to wear a patch or a pin, have a secret handshake. And that's not to say I would never join a motorcycle club. It would depend on that relationship. And honestly, as you get to know people, you can kind of figure out if this is somebody you want to be around all the time. And that's how it's supposed to be. Do you stand for the same things? Do you look at the world the same way? Do you have the same general goals? That's a club. And if I ever meet those people, decide this is where I want to be, and they can keep up with me in the miles. Okay, I'm just talking trash now, but had to throw it in there. Then yeah, I'd consider it, absolutely. And if I get in tight with those people, and we have that relationship, I will back them up, absolutely. As long as it doesn't take away from my riding, because that's really where my heart is. That's really what I love to do. I have a lizard coming across the floor. Unfortunately, I can't show you because if I move, he's going to lose his mind and take off. He's just sitting there watching me talk. He's like, "What you doing?" So I'm going to wrap it up with that. Next time, we'll talk about something else. Christmas is just around the corner. January is just around the corner from that. And the Easy Rider Show is just around the corner from that. That'll be up in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's actually 2 days this year, which reminds me I have to go book my hotel room. 2 days this year, that ought to be awesome. I've got some other videos coming up like 10 photography trip, I've got some other videos coming up, like 10 photography tips. And I just got in my Tamron 70-200 G2 lens, which is a beautiful lens. And I'm going to do a review of that. That's not going to matter to anybody who's not into photography, but it is coming up. My condolences to those of you in the snow. It's raining today. I got out a little bit earlier, but it's raining today. And it looks like it's going to rain most of next week, but I will get out and try and get you some road video just so you can live vicariously through my camera. Thanks again for being here. I appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Take care. Oh, my foot's asleep. Oh gosh, my whole leg's asleep. Dude, I can't feel the right side of my body. I'm gonna fall on my face right on camera. My leg's asleep. Oh gosh. Oh, my leg's asleep.